Hello, one and all, and welcome back to the Hidden Realms YouTube channel. I am your humble GM, Joshua MacGregor, returning for after a number of weeks to the show. Um, and yeah, this is Roll Insight, the show where we talk about the latest episodes of the shows that are coming out on the Hidden Realms YouTube channel, and give a little bit of insight about what's going on behind the scenes. This is a bit of a weird one. I might actually just try doing something different with my lighting. Um, my lighting is bad. The YouTube streaming thing did not work for me the way it used to do. Uh, and so we are just kind of winging it. We got everything. We got overhead lights bouncing off my enormous forehead. We got front lights, which don't actually illuminate my face. That's a little bit better, maybe. Who even knows? But we're gonna go with it because we have a bunch of things to talk about today. Um, Last time we did one of these, we talked about episodes 9 of the Mockeries and the Reserve List. This time, we are playing a little bit of catch up because I took a bit of a break over the holidays, and because I got a little bit burnt out. But that's okay because you know what happened? I got some sleep, I got some rest in, and then I lost it all again designing a brand new base class for the game. It's very cool, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm not sharing any more than that. That's just a teaser. So we are going to be talking about episodes 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 of the Mockeries and the Reserve List. So let's do this big old roundup. I'm going to roll an insight check for this whole thing, and that is a nat 2. So you know this episode's gonna be garbage. Hopefully it won't be, but let's just get right into it. So um what I'll do is I'll divide this episode into two segments. I will talk first about the Mockeries, and then I will talk about the Reserve List. And I'll go all the way through the 5 episodes we're catching up on for the Mockeries first, and then go into the 5 episodes of the Reserve List. These thoughts may be out of sync. They might be out of order. And I might dance around those 5 episodes a little bit, but the idea is that I will touch upon the most impactful moments and the bits that where there was stuff going on behind the scenes that's kind of interesting. So, without further ado, let's talk about episode 10 of the Mockeries. Now, this was called, I believe, the Reeve and the Sting. Not the best title in the world, but I have to do everything. So who knows? I have to learn to be better at these things. The Reeve and the Sting has them talking to a high elven character called Otilg, who is somebody who's more of like a world building Easter egg for the rest of the world. Um, I do have plans for her going forward. I have plans for a lot of characters who apparently have fallen by the wayside going forward. But Otilg is this character who had a a very illustrious career back at the beginning of the Cygalian calendar, who's the elven master craftsman and helped sign the accord, and then later on helped to build to forge the Moonlight Scythe, which is such a big part of the Mockery story. um Otilg doesn't know what's going on, though. She has been isolated and sort of just hanging out near this scythe for a very long time. And so what happens with Otilg is uh, she sort of knows that some bad things are going on, but doesn't get involved to the degree that somebody would if they did know what was happening. So if you are wondering, it's like, wait a minute, why didn't Otilg like help with the Legazzi's fight? she doesn't know about the Legazis. In fact, a lot of people don't know about the Legazis, which is a thing. And why did she let the Moonlight Scythe go? Well, that's kind of the reason she's been around, is she's kind of been ensuring that the scythe goes with who it's supposed to go with. And I'll get into that a little bit more, but that's become like very quickly becoming the end game of the Mockeries storyline uh, is this push me pull you between all of these factions that have been established for the scythe, which is not at all what I thought it was going to be going into this campaign, and it's very exciting. But yes, so they talk to Otilg, and then they go and they sort of set up plans with Humphrey Blaine to catch Peter, Peter Engelhart, Peter Legazi, and they make those plans, and then they go into Madame Mad's augury auction, which is episode 11. In that, they fully participate in the auction. I know that we did the auction in the reserve list before, and some of the items are the same. That's because she recycles a lot of the same items. But these guys got a lot more luck than the reserve list did on their try at the auction, and end up walking away with not only with a helm of telepathy, but also with a nat 20'd wondrous item called the Fate Stitcher's Compass, sort of a crystal compass that emits golden light. And I wanted to note down somewhere, because I do talk about in the actual show, I do talk about like what the mechanics are, but I wanted to actually like say this is what the mechanics of this item was, because I went away and I designed the Fate Stitcher's Compass to be essentially, it gains 1 charge every time Cloud rolls a nat 1 and keeps the result. So it doesn't count if she rolls with advantage and one of them is a 1, if that makes sense, or if she replaces the roll. So she has to take the nat 1s, and then the Stitcher's Compass gets charges, and once it has 3, you can use a reaction to expend all the charges for a Deus Ex Machina moment. So you basically rewrite fate in a very dire moment, and the universe will intervene in some way to help you. If you use it, you gain a level of exhaustion because it's absolutely fucking broken. Forgive my French, but yeah. So that's the item that I gave to Cloud. Yes, it is broken, but it requires you to fail significantly 3 times, and it gives you exhaustion. So I thought I would give it to her. We will learn later how powerful that item is, and why Josh shouldn't homebrew, but he does, and it's powerful, and I love it. So that's really fun. They also saw Silas Robingard, who's a character they may or may not interact with in the future, who's a sort of a nobleman. I wanted to really just sort of flesh out that there are all these noble people, and they are going about their business and doing their lives in this world, because those little details are sort of the lifeblood of the thing. And Silas Robingard could come back, later on as this person who just has true sight now. He's this nobleman who could just see see things as they truly are, which would be a very fun. That's a character I'm looking forward to reintegrating into for stories down the line. Silas Robingard. In any case, they then learn that that Marta is not who she says she is, and it's very fun for me. I don't like to talk not to talk down. I don't like to play enemies less intelligently than they would actually be. And what that means is I will sometimes I will show characters doing things. And the thing about D&D players, which is completely fair, is they don't like to say no to things, which is amazing. So sometimes I might inadvertently be taking advantage of that, but Marta lures them into a trap, and the trap is getting them in combat with herself and with Peter, and so they have a little tussle with those two, which leads us to youngest in the line. This is our first true introduction to the Legazis in the Mockeries game, uh, in terms of like the main family, the Legazis, and especially the soul caged hollows. So Marta is the youngest and therefore weakest of the hollows, and gets into a fight with them. I didn't expect her to win the fight, um, but I realize now that she had a lot of abilities which, like, had she hit, like, had 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 she rolled a little bit better, she could have turned the tide of that fight in her favor, um, which is crazy to think about. But the Mockeries got very lucky, as they are wont to do, and they managed to defeat Marta while Peter just stood at the side. The Legazis are one of the factions who want the scythe. Everybody wants the scythe. We've got the werewolves, we've got the Yuan-Ti, and we've got the Legazis, as well as Perennial and Makir. So we've got like 4 different factions outside of the heroes gunning for this item. Um, and and the Legazis don't necessarily want to kill them. The reason for which being, um, they did help them out at one point. One of them is a warlock of Balzabul, which is part of their thing. Is, they've sort of got a non-violence, whatever that's called, treaty with the Nine Hells. And the other is, when you're that much stronger than your opponents, like, Peter doesn't have a reason to be worried about them, as we find out in the subsequent episode called Utter Catastrophe, aptly named, where we find out not only that Peter is far above them in strength, but also we find Marta's ability, or rather that all Legazis have this ability, which is the ability to return from death. That death is not a permanent thing for these people, and their bodies can take a few hits and still return from apparent death, which terrified the players, which was good, which is the idea. And this episode was this episode I have a lot more to talk about than the previous ones, because it's amazing. The thing you want more than anything as a DM is for your players to be invested in your world. And whenever I put something out, whenever I write something or create an encounter or what have you, or write a scenario, my deep hope as a dungeon master or a game master or a master of ceremonies or whatever it is to my greatest hope is that the players will engage with that story, whether that be like on any level, that they love something about the world or they hate something about the world, and having them engage and be like, and have that realization that they are outclassed, and engage with these people in this way, and their boiling up hatred of Humphrey Blaine, who showed up and turned out to be in the Legazis' pockets, and the subsequent paranoia that has sown in them, are all brilliant, and also they're wonderful. And then we get this moment where Cloud and Thesia are down. Peter can easily deal with Theremin and goes and gets the scythe and escapes with the scythe. And that was all rolled for. Behind the scenes, this is your 2 insight being rolled here. Behind the scenes, I rolled for banishment. I know that technically the way that I said the banishment work isn't the way that it works, but they have a very powerful wizard at their disposal who can deal with dimensional stuff. So I sort of played a little bit fast and loose with that. But I rolled for banishment. I rolled to see if Peter would come back, because that's not a guarantee with the Legazis. And the way that it worked out was that Moon, the Moonlight Scythe Sliver, killed Peter, and then Peter came back and banished it, and then got away. And helplessness is something that I feel it is important to seed in some of these story moments early on. I think that a lot of what makes a big, bad, evil guy, or the big bad of your campaign, terrifying is the fact that at the stage the heroes are at, they are not ready to take them down. And I showed that a little bit with Matt Shesha. It's she's definitely stronger than Thesia. I showed that a little bit with Zhen. Zhen is definitely more powerful, although with the side they could take, like, again, it's one of those things that they could take him down instantly, which is the protection against that. But then there's Peter, and Peter is one of these characters who's many hundreds of years old, used to be human, is a powerful warrior, is not who he says he is, has a lot of clout in the world, and and in one hit takes down 2 of your allies. And it was not lost on me that there was no way for them to win that fight. I know that, and that was the point. Whether or not he took the Moonlight Scythe in the end was the only real question of the moment, because he wasn't going to kill them. He said immediately that he wasn't going to do that. So I knew that they would survive, lick their wounds, and come back stronger to beat him next time. But if it had gone the other way, which it very well might have gone, if the Moonlight Scythe had killed him and he had remained dead, they would still be facing the prospect of these people hunting them. These people who are stronger than them, hunting them down. And knowing that if it came to it, it would be just the Moonlight Scythe that would keep them safe. So there is this way I think worked better for what I was going for, and the response from Lily, who plays Cloud, was so everybody role played this so well, but Lily's reaction and role playing was so far and beyond anything I could have anticipated, and was such a deep connection and engagement with the story and the world that I feel myself getting choked up talking about it sometimes. It is deeply humbling and utterly flattering is not even the right word. It is it is the greatest. It's a compliment, which I do not take lightly. It is an honor that I do not take lightly. And so huge shout out to Lily. your your devastation that you portrayed as Cloud at the loss of the Moonlight Scythe, who was meant to be a little bit of like an asshole that you were meant to be, it was meant to be an asshole that you put up with because he was so useful, or because they were so useful rather. And to end up being this amazing comedic character, and for you guys to so readily grow to understand and love this character, and he is I keep saying he, and they are a character, whether or not they are a magic item, they are sentient. It was so funny and so heartwarming, and the absolute devastation of this moment for Cloud and by proxy these others, because again, Callum is amazing as well. Theremin feeling that responsibility for, like, there was nothing he could do but having let down Cloud and allowed this person to get away was so rough on him. And the fact that his character just goes and starts drinking immediately, it's like, oh man, this is rough. Those moments are the heart. Like, you have to balance it out, but it's like, it's the joking with Moon Moon and it's the crying after Moon Moon's gone that makes D&D worth playing and worth watching for me. That's the reason I got into Dungeons and Dragons in the first place, and it is an honor and a joy. And so sad. It's so sad when that happens. So yeah, that was that. And then Cloud decides to go off on her own. And there's me going like, absolutely, absolutely, I honor and respect what you are doing. And we're going to and we're going to keep you guys apart for a little bit and then see how we can join back up again. So we go, that brings us into episode 14, which is the latest one that has aired, which is a deal or two with the devil. And this was really fun because I knew that both Cloud, played by Lily, and Thesia, played by Daisy, were going to be multi-classing, and I wanted to find a really interesting way of doing this in world. And so Cloud starts to like get back to her roots and like go back to, nature. And Thesia straight up makes a deal with the devil, and it was really fun for me to come up with devil contracts. Especially like the Balzable one was more improvised, that I had not prepared beforehand. Where if Theremin dies, she dies instead, which is a fun one, which is really interesting. Adds an interesting spice to future combats. It's one that I definitely think I'm going to be doing in the future if people are dealing with devils. I'm like, this is a really cool one. Yeah, Balzabul's just working away at what he's doing. Very excited for future Balzabul stuff. Balzabul's definitely one of my favorite characters to roleplay, just because again he gets that like visceral reaction from people. He's just utterly disgusting character with a silly voice, but one that does portray him, which is very fun. We still don't know a huge amount about this character, and I'm not willing to reveal a huge amount to you, but he is a major devil, and he is selfish and he is working for himself. The fact that he has, he was willing to take the soul of his son should tell you something about his character, is what I will say. But then, of course, Beelzebul gets her in touch with Asmodeus, and Asmodeus is one of those characters where I had prepped to do a game which we ultimately didn't ever play. I'm sure we will eventually, which was going to be set in the Nine Hells and sort of go down from Avernus all the way down to Nessus. And this feels apt, seeing as I'm going to be uploading this on the day of Joe Biden's inauguration. Shout out to Joe Biden and Trump being on his way out. But the original idea, which was a very funny idea, was that the devil would be Trump, would have Trump's voice essentially, and I thought that was a really good gag. And then I thought about it a little bit more in terms of the world, and I thought I don't want to give Trump that much credit. I that's ultimately what it is. I want Trump to be one of the eight lords of the other hells. I won't tell you which one, but I don't want him to be the one. And so I came up with Asmodeus. Asmodeus is just a really good guy. Okay, he's just a really understanding dude. That's it. So Asmodeus got to talk a little bit of philosophy and gave Theseus some powers for free. So that's good. And that's the insight, is that he's just a really good guy. And it's this colossal sort of misunderstanding about Asmodeus. And so, yeah, they're on the road going into episode 15, which is going to be airing tomorrow. There will be some stuff that happens. I'm very excited for you guys to see how the Mockeries progresses. The Mockeries has got one of the most unique progressions of any game of Dungeons and Dragons, period. Yeah, of any Dungeons and Dragons game, period. There is something that's going to happen. This is my insight. Keep watching this show, because there is something that is going to happen, and it is so bonkers. And you'll be able to see us just scrambling around trying to figure out what the hell we're doing. I promise, after the fact, we figured it all out and we cemented it down and we've got a new rule system. But there is something that happens which is bonkers, and in a weird way makes a huge amount of sense for the villains, like for the introduction of all these villains who are so much stronger than them. In an ordinary game, it would take them so many level ups to be able to fight Mechesha, or to be able to fight Jen, or Peter. And the unique style of progression that happens in the Mockeries is one I think will just be intriguing for anybody to watch, because it's really cool. It's a few episodes down the line, but the stuff in between is very engaging and cool. So I'm very excited about the future of the Mockeries game as we sort of enter. I think we're entering the back half now in terms of recorded episodes. You guys, in terms of episodes that you are getting, yeah, maybe a third of the way through. Yeah. Okay, having done that huge ramble talk about, let's go ahead and talk about the reserve list. So we start with the episode where they are still, episode 10, they're still gathering intel on this mystery, and they go to the cafeteria and meet Brandon. I had thought that they would not meet Brandon at this time, but they did, and they know that he's creepy, and they left him. So I liked the introduction of Brandon as this really creepy guy who's posing as a lunch lad. That was super fun for me. So that's that episode. They sort of just gather intelligence and then go and do their gig, and then Gwen gets thrown off her game a little bit when her dad walks in. And let's give a huge shout out to Alberta Saunders, who plays Gwen on the show. Alberta's one of the smartest real life people that I know. And I'm sure I've said this before. I must have done. Smartest real life people that I know. And such an emotionally intelligent person, and is one of those people. We've been role playing together for a number of months now, and we get into some character nuance, some actual character relationship stuff, which feels, yeah, which feels nuanced, which feels layered, and uh and real, and in a way, um which is very cool, which is one of my favorite parts about running the reserve list, is running Edgar Galanis and seeing Gwen and Alberta through Gwen engaging with that storyline and that character. Because in the next episode, Secrets of the Father, episode 11, they actually get to have a chat. And this chat is very awkward. Like, if you watch it back, it's like they don't properly address a lot of the stuff that they need to. And they sort of abandon different parts of the conversation to do other bits. Edgar is one of those characters who I feel I'm constantly feeling like either it's like he gives off very clear good guy vibes, or very clear like I have too many secrets for my own good vibes. Um, and I'm involved with shit vibes. And that's the way he's meant to be, not because not because of anything, that I put in place. Like, not because I wanted him to come across that way, but because that's, I mean, I do, but that's what his character is. His character is somebody who is working towards a goal and can't allow his daughter into his life. And that is so not what Gwen needs. And it's so heartbreaking to to yeah, to watch. And then Gwen gets that intel, right? She gets the note um from the Legazis that says, Adelaide Brown is none of your concern, 14. uh we as of episode 14, they still don't know what that means, but that's something that will definitely come up because it's part of Edgar's thing. And then there's Shaddison, and I'll be honest, I didn't roleplay Shaddison as well as I would have liked to. I feel like that I could have done a much better job on him, but he was a bit. It was there was too much dead air when I was roleplaying Shaddison. Sometimes you're tired and you're trying your best to give energy, and you just can't think of words, like today. um, and then that episode capped out with the absolutely brilliant play by Ralph playing Nurgle Shroombeard, who located object on the Legacy symbol and found Brandon, which led into the next episode. This is your main insight for this. I'm going to let you know what would have happened. What would have happened had they gone to bed is that Brandon would have gone to Mary's and done what he was going to do there, and then come back to the inn, used Shaddison to attack them all in their dreams and in the real world simultaneously, in a fight which very likely would have taken someone down permanently. The thing I had planned was a brutal fight that was going to be set partially in the nightmare and partially in the real world, and it was going to be trippy as all hell. But they got the drop on Brandon instead, and them getting the drop on Brandon was such a clutch move. It was so good, and it made me so happy. It's like, yeah, whomp my bad guy. Like, get him, just get him. So that the whole thing, then planning that, going in, just wrecking his Schneiser, felt good, felt earned. I love that they were just like, yeah, just get him, just get him. But then he is, of course, a Legazi, and he knocking him out does not bring him down. So he came back, and then the next phase of the fight was very cool because I had the very clear sort of like puzzle element to it, which is you have to be able to find him, and once you found him, these people are going to jump in front of your attacks. So how are you going to make this work, team of level 3 adventurers? And once again, the very clutch move from Ralph has had a good few sessions there. The whole thing about being terrified of just like a normal family, and then the move where he can detect magic and then mage hand to point out where he is. So good, just so good. So they beat him. They beat Brandon Legazi, which is very cool, and has been very cool since then to be like, yeah, you beat him, and he's gonna come back. And what happens when you don't have a surprise round on Brandon Legazi, right? He almost took down Isabin at 1 HP. Like, he was clobbering everybody to death with the mobs under his control with 1 hit point. And people got that, and that was really cool. The next episode, they wrapped up the mystery, which I was in a little bit of a state of like wrap up the mystery here. I shouldn't rush things. I know I shouldn't. But our playtime is so limited for the reserve list. It takes so, and it's so long between sessions. It takes so long to move the story along. So I'm always pushing for the story to move ahead quickly if possible. That's a little insight into me. Also because lockdown won't last forever, and we do have to get the story done. And same thing for the reserve list is we are getting into, where in terms of recorded episodes, we are getting into the beginnings of the final act. Same with the Mockeries. It's like we are getting into the beginnings of the final act. And they are very different stories. But I'm very excited. And yeah, so we've passed the halfway mark now, which is very cool indeed. And that's one of the things is that I think that all stories need an end. And long form campaigns are wonderful and have their place and have the place in my heart. There have been longer campaigns that I've run where I don't want to say goodbye to the characters, but I believe very strongly in endings. And even if it's something where we will come back and revisit characters that we ended with, right? There is a campaign that I ran with Alberta and with Mike, who shows up in the Narcissistic Tendencies, and a couple one-shots, Watson, Thanos, Magnificent Heist, etc. on the channel. I played with those guys, which I adore those characters, and they both survived till the end of the campaign, and I know we will revisit them at some point. Like, it is inevitable. Those characters are so beloved by me and by them. Yeah. But that story needed an ending, and it got an ending, and the next chapter would have a different story associated with it. And thus it is for the Mockeries in the reserve list. We got to get to that Battle of the Bands. We got to have that big old crossover at the end once these guys have completed their stories. And once that's done, these will be done. Whether I do another project with these people again, I hope so. I love role-playing with all these guys. I might need a little break between that and starting up a new one, or not, is up in the air. But yeah, there will be an end to the Mockeries and to the reserve list. And the Mockeries Part 2 Electric Boogaloo will be a very fun campaign, but it'll be a separate one from the Race to the Battle of the Bands. Okay, continuing on with the with the reserve list. They go into the episode, yeah, they go into episode 14, which is the immediate aftermath of the fight, and yeah, and Adelaide Brown is resurrected, and things are sort of wrapped up a little bit neatly. There, all they have left to do is do their performance in Crusher, which is a very fun episode. I'm very much looking forward to you guys watching it. And seeing what happens with the reserve list going forward, because it is intriguing. It is dynamic in its character work. There's some stuff coming up which is so interesting, and we really start to dive into the Dreaming of the Nightmare, which is an area of the Cygalian world building which I adore and have not gotten a chance to dive into in a major way before. So that's very exciting for me, and hopefully to my players. But yeah, trying to provide engaging storylines for everybody so that those can wrap up by the end of the story. That's where we are at. Guys, I've rambled for so long and I have to go do other things. This has been a Roll Insight for the last 5 episodes of the Mockeries and the Reserve List. One of 2 things is going to happen. Either I'm going to do another one of these next week, or I will do another one of these after a few episodes have passed. It depends on how I feel. But know that you will get another one of these. All of the episodes that come out will be covered. It just might be a little bit more irregularly going forward. I know that's not great for, the YouTube channel, algorithm, etc., but I am running so many games and editing so many things, and writing so many homebrew classes that, yeah, I feel like I'm justified. So there. Haha. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you did, like and subscribe, all of that good stuff really will help. We want to grow this channel. We are working on doing a higher budget production, which is going to be so good, so cool. Just one of these high octane, mad, high fantasy, high intrigue shows that just change the dynamics of everything in the world, and it's going to be so good. So subscribe to get that. So stay subscribed to get the Mockeries in the Reserve List, and more episodes of Roll Insight. We recently had the intro created by Frank E. Sign, I believe is his handle, Callum Cox, who's part of the Mockeries. It's a wonderful intro. And I will be putting it in, it will be integrated into future episodes and one-shots. And oh yeah, I should talk about that. In a couple of weeks' time, after episode 16 of both these shows airs, we are going to be having a couple of one-shots. Those are going to be uploaded on Thursdays for 2 weeks. So the first one is going to be a very exciting one-shot run by Lily of the Mockeries, with the Mockeries crew, but set in her world, where we all get to play, and I get to play a character, which is fun. And the one after that is with a bunch of new people to the channel, who are all incredible role players, and it's just a big old fun battle, and it's so much fun. I know I'm saying fun an awful lot, but that's the truth. It's a high level pirate sea battle, and I had more fun running that than I have done running anything in ages. So stay tuned to check those out. Those are going to be great. And after those 2 weeks of one-shots have aired, we will be back with Reserve List and Mockeries content for a while. Yeah. So see you next time. Goodbye.